Alright boys, here we go. This is the 2020 Groundhog Extreme Harescramble at Rockcrusher Farm in Young Harris, Georgia. Like this says, I entered into silver. There was gold, silver, and bronze. I entered into silver and was way over my head. I was figuring, I'm a B rider in Harescramble and Enduros. I ran Doe Mountain in B and did okay. I ended up in the mid-pack, so, I'll just try this one in the middle. Man, was I wrong. So it rained the whole night before, from like 10 p.m. on, and it was misty and kind of rainy all day leading up into the race. If you don't know anything about Georgia, it's all kind of clay and this like silty sand. Or not sand, but like the silty kind of clay mix. It's very strange, and it's very messy. When it gets wet, it turns into the slickest, snottiest crap you can ride through. So this is the first hill, and I went from an okay start. I mean, it's a Harescramble start, so I went from an okay start to like mid-pack because I had a bobble on that hill. And then you can see just how chopped up it's already getting, and this is supposed to be a multi-lap race. I'm going to tell you ahead of time, I didn't make a lap. So this first section was just a set of dragon backs. You roll up, run up one side, down the other, up and down again. And then this was like the first big bottleneck. On the left-hand side of this, there was a hill. It wasn't that steep of a hill or that big of a hill. It's just the run-up was not very good, and then everybody was in the way, like what happens at these events. And on the left-hand side where I end up going, there's a stick you can see. It's a decent-sized branch, and then what I couldn't see is that there is a stump in the middle of the left-hand line. So if you shoot up right into the middle, you hit this stump, and that's what I end up doing. It gets me. There's a stump. Shoot my bike into the air. I probably could have made it if it was dry, but in these conditions, I was already off the bike and somebody cut in front of me, so whatever, just let it go. The other part is that now I'm down the hill from my bike, and the ground is so slick that I can't get any kind of traction to get back up the hill, so I was fighting that part. And then it's one of those things where it's like, well, the bikes get sacrificed, so just, chuck it. And like I said, it wasn't that hard of a hill. The biggest thing I notice about these races is that I have the hardest time with hill climbs, which is bad for a hard enduro because I'm just not good at hill climbs. And I can get up hills and struggle my way up, but watching like Nick Farringer come by, and he was on his second lap and came by me at one of these hills. Watching him come by me was incredible, and I don't know if it's just bike or technique or whatever, the whole thing altogether, but he blew my doors off and everybody else. And after watching the American Hard Enduro recap of this race, it looked like he did 4 laps, which is in-friggin' insane when I didn't even make it. I made it 2/3 of the way through one and didn't make it to the second silver gold line. The Enduro Cross section was kind of fun. I've been wanting to do an Enduro Cross. I wish there was an Enduro Cross series or a Enduro Cross race somewhere close by. I would do that. It's a lot of fun. It's a weird skill set to have, but whatever. It's enjoyable to me. And all the mud and rain did not make these obstacles any better. Another thing I got to work on. I get so much anxiety going before a race, and I don't know if everybody else does, or you got some kind of recommendation, and everybody's like, you need to have a beer the night before, or smoke weed, or whatever. Well, I can't smoke weed because it's not legal, and I know, I'm fucking square, whatever, but I don't drink much at all, and so the idea of having a beer before a race or the night before is kind of disgusting to me. But so I get this anxiety so bad that the night before the race I couldn't sleep, and then the morning of the race I couldn't eat. So I went into this race, and this is excuse my portion for excuses. I went into the race with probably 2 hours of sleep and no food, no breakfast, which was a terrible decision. I know some guys would be like, Man, that creek was so hard. The creeks were nothing. I can do, if it's rocky, or like rocky garbage, rocky water, I tend to do okay. It's in the muddy, sloppy hill climbs that I don't do well. And I'm still getting used to this 250. This is the reason I bought this bike, was to do this stuff. So, you know, this being my second race and probably overclassing myself, or not probably, absolutely overclassing myself, didn't help. If I go to Battle of the Goats and do the amateur day, I'm definitely going for like bronze class. I don't know what else, I don't know what their options are going to be, but I'm definitely going for the lower one. I don't care what AMA says. I have no business being in a silver class or any of this. So apparently Rock Crusher is pretty well known for its really, really technical and really good single track. I will say that all the connecting trails and everything were really killer. I would love to come back to this place and ride when it's dry. Another local guy told me that this place in the wet is insane, and we picked the wettest day to do the hardest thing there. So my exposure was, I could tell that the trail was really good, but my exposure was still that I had to do this horrible thing while I was experiencing this place for the first time. Off camber I can do well, ruts I can do okay if I'm doing them kind of, slow-ish. It's downhills I do well with. Rocky technical stuff I generally do okay with, unless it's like the Graham's Gorge thing where I pretty much my race ended, where it's like these successive super technical step-ups, and it's a mix of all the things that you're make hard enduro, and I just have to learn to put all of them together in a sense where I'm actually being able to make myself competitive. Every log was, as slick as snot. All the single track turned into this ruddy mess. There was not a lot of standing water, but we had to ride through water, which didn't necessarily help. It was rough. It was this was probably, like, the Doe Mountain race was a lot of fun. It was more like a single track Harescramble in this sense that it was like, yeah, I only did one lap at Doe Mountain, but I still made it through the one lap, and, probably could have made a second one, or maybe could have made a second one, but this one was a whole different eye-opening experience. It's like, man, there's a lot of training or focus on this kind of riding that has to happen to be really good at it. And now watching stuff like, even Erzberg, or watching guys do Battle of the Goats from last year, it's like, man, I got a lot of respect for everybody who can do this kind of racing and do it really well. The thing on my visor is an old lens for my goggles, and it's a trick I learned from somebody, Keith probably, for keeping mud off your goggles and off the GoPro. It does a really good job when it's raining to keep, spray and water off. But you'll see up ahead, it also I didn't realize how much it narrowed the view. So a little bit later on, I go and take my goggles off and hit a bump in my camera, and it messes the view up for a minute, but it's all good, you can still see. This kind of switchbacky single track climbing stuff, this is pretty standard as far as, single track trail riding. I will say that I'm excited to get back to like Brown Mountain, because there's some trails there that I haven't done in a long time that I'm really excited to be able to get back into to use as training, just to be able to learn to properly, grind my way up without spinning, because that's the biggest thing. That's what kills me on these uphills. And I don't think it's the 250 thing. It might be, because this is a TE model, and I'm geared 1352. Yeah, I broke that. So it's geared 1352, and I'm like, I'd still want some on the top end going up a hill, so it kind of like peters out at the top. And then if I have to, if I'm trying to spin up to get power, you watch me or listen to the revs on the bike when I take off into a hill climb. I preload my revs to get to the top of the hill, and I have to do it on some hills that you shouldn't. I feel like I shouldn't necessarily have to do it on. But I also don't want to sacrifice all the bike's top end power for, you know, all low end. So I'm still working to learn that balance of, you know, keep the revs low-ish and keep your traction moving forward and moving your weight back and forth to help you propel up hills and up, you know, whatever the obstacle is. That's where I yanked my pipe guard off of there. So you're welcome Doe Mountain or not Doe Mountain. You're welcome Rock Crusher for my Polysport Armadillo pipe guard that I have to order another one of. This section was weird. It was so slick and the roots were in such an awkward position that you immediately start sliding into the hill, and then it was, you know, a single track hill, and he hit his chest on that tree, but he seemed okay. I was using that stump in front of me as a way to kind of navigate my front wheel down, because at some point you're just going to start sliding and you've got no option. I watch guys, you know, they sit down and will kind of like stand next to their bike and try and ski down hills and stuff. I've got no issue with a downhill. I'll just send myself down a hill, whatever. As long as I can keep my weight back, I generally will make it. And it's, but that hill, even though it doesn't look that crazy on GoPro, because GoPro flattens everything out, that hill is pretty, it will turn down into the single track. This section's fairly popular or famous at Rock Crusher. Like, I knew this part of the trail existed from watching other single track trail riding videos from other people riding at Rock Crusher. And this is like the first, this wasn't a split line, this was the everybody do it line, but this was probably the first really kind of hard section. Everything else had been, you know, difficult, but it was mostly just single track with a couple of hill climbs in it. This was the first part where I thought, okay, it's getting into the hard enduro stuff. I've got an aversion to water, which makes sense for a dirt bike because you can just destroy a bike getting water in the motor. And so some of these spots, this trail, this creek doesn't have any kind of like real deep sections, but I watched some of these videos where the guys are riding through and it's like your takeoff point is a bike sinker. You can, if you don't hit the wall right, you end up dropping your bike into a creek or into a pond. That kind of riding does not interest me at all, so I don't know what to do I don't know what to do in that situation if something like that were to come up, which I haven't really faced it yet. It's just one of those situations I've seen in hard enduro videos. Just you guys were just sitting there kind of talking. It was very odd. But this is another part of hard enduro riding, the bottlenecking, and I'm realizing that you just have to be aggressive about what you're going to do. You have to be very intent with your line, and then you have to be able to kind of force your way through to clear certain sections, because people stop in the weirdest, worst places, and then you'll get to the hill climb or something kind of nasty, and you have to really pick and choose your way through these hills, and I'm, as of right now, not good at it. So I have to either find an alternate line, or I have to just suffer and push, which is exhausting. And like I said, I'd started this race in not the best situation, physically, and so the idea that I was going to have to push my way up this hill was just, too daunting. And I watched guys push, and I thought, man, that's a long way to push while screaming your engine up this hill. And these are like my multiple attempts at the main line for this hill. And if you look at it from the bottom, you're like, man, that's a tough hill. That would be a tough hill to climb if it was dry. And you're like, yeah, it'd be a tough hill to climb if it was dry and there weren't 40 people on it in every possible good line where the options are crap. And then, so this is what I ended up doing. And I said something to one of the sweepers. I was like, hey, I'm going to shoot off into the woods. Is that, legal or okay? He goes, legal, sure, whatever, do it. I guess if it was not it didn't go too far off the trail, he didn't mind. It's amazing how much trouble a single, moss-covered wet log can cause. I felt like I had a pretty good drive up that. I made a mistake. I shouldn't have turned. I should have kept going, skirting up and trying to clear the hill, because the top of the hill is only 15 feet from where I am, or 10 feet from where I am. I'm pretty sure that guy blew his bike up. That's so much smoke. So I'm like 15 feet from where I need to be, and then I keep trying to do this, zigzag up the, zigzag bushwhacking thing, and I end up getting stuck again on, a wet, moss-covered log for way too long, just a couple feet from the top of the hill. I have a 2.0 bar radiator cap with a thermostat on it, and I just now have added a fan to my bike that I can operate off of my headlight switch, because I don't need a headlight on my bike. Hopefully that'll save me. Yeehaw! I made it up the hill. You're good. This is one of those sections where it's off camber, it's rocks, it's slick and muddy, and then the hardest part of this whole section was the little diagonal tree that's right there. And when I came up on this guy originally and I didn't have my camera on, he was laying down the hill, bike, wheels up the hill, him laying down the hill, and then got himself up. I didn't have anywhere to put my bike to be able to get down to help him. But that was a little area that I saw give people problems, and it's odd. It's odd that I can't climb a hill, but I can off-camber roots and rocks easy enough. And if anybody cares, I was on a Tusk Recon with 2 rides, and I was running 2.5 pounds on tubeless in the front and rear. And I'll say that in the mud like this, I had wished I had had a more aggressive tire. Or like a wider space actual kind of knobby tire, because the Recon, like the 505, the knobs are not as close to the 505, but the mud doesn't clear as well as something like a 525 or a proper motocross tire. Not motocross, proper knobby. So I think next I'm going to try a Kenda Ibex. I hear a lot of good stuff about them. And then the other one everybody's saying is try a Gakoda IRC something. I don't know what there's a number for it, number 9 or something like that. So this is the first split line. So gold and silver went this way, and bronze went to the right. And I don't know what my plan was. I was going to attack that kind of like the way I'd been doing without a paddle, just kind of slow and churn my way up it. But there's so much water and mud that it wasn't going to happen. In this race, it felt like there was really 2 options for classes. You were either an A rider or a C rider. And there being silver was really just like a glorification, saying, you know, okay, you're not pro, but we're going to make you run the same lines anyways, because the race was the same regardless of what class you were in. You were still just A, B. You still ran gold and silver, and then gold and silver ran together, and then bronze ran their own line. So after that, made it up that waterfall, and I made it a little bit further forward, and then realized that I wasn't going to be able to progress. It just got too intense for me, and I could see people way ahead of me that were just, you know, struggling. So, and I was spent, so I decided I was going to go back and get on the bronze line and try to at least finish a lap on the bronze line. And this is what that is. This is, you know, just a single track climbing off-camber sweepers, and just between my tire and the conditions, you can see I'm just sliding backwards. Between my tire and the conditions and my physical status, I was in no shape for this. And I'm really not trying to make a ton of excuses. I will say the excuses I had were that my lack of eating and the lack of sleep were really not helping me at all. But past that point, it was just technique. I just didn't have the right ability to be able to make it through some of the stuff that they had for gold and silver. And that's nothing about the promoters. They put on an excellent event. I could say that it would have been nice that if there were 3 lines, you know. There's the gold line, which is the pro A line, and then the silver line would have been, you know, harder than bronze, but not as hard as the gold line. But I don't make these things up. I don't create these races, so that's just something I'm going to have to deal with in the future if I plan on keeping on doing these kind of events. I'm gassed. But just because you're gassed doesn't mean you get to stop. Like, I can't just stop there and wait for somebody to come get me, so I still have to make it out of the woods. And because of this being what it is, and where I was in the race, it was not an option to be able to just, you know, wait for something to happen or be able to find somebody the easy way out. So I still had to progress my way through the bronze lines until I could find a place to pull off. And all of this stuff, I felt like, as I was doing it, I was like, oh, this I can do. I can make it through. If these are the hardest parts of the bronze lines, I can make it through all this and probably make, you know, I probably could have made 2 laps of bronze, I think. It had 3 hours. Minus that the big hill, but after I had figured out how to get up it, I didn't have much issue. I don't think I would have had much issue. And that could be me just overselling my ability still. But I still think I could have made more than 1 lap of bronze. GoPro doesn't ever give downhills any credit. This was a long, steep downhill, and it just kept going. And like I was saying, I really enjoy these things. Like, you just kind of, you know, point your front end down, sit back a little bit, and, you know, give it what she's got. I was really just idle, crawling down, sliding down a hill. But down towards the bottom, I started to accelerate into the downhill, and that's a lot of fun to me. It gets kind of out of control, but it's still a lot of fun to be able to just kind of careen down a hill real quick. I don't know if it's a rule of hard enduro, but you know, what goes down must come up. So if it's going down, if you're going down for an extended period of time, you're going to go back up whatever you just came down, and that rule holds true here, where we just, you know, keep going down, 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 and then eventually you have to go straight back up. and that's where I really, you know, got to the end and was like, okay, I'm done. I'm 100% done. Time to pull off. And this was sloppy. This was weird. It was like all the mud had run down into the bottom of this gully. So, like I said, this is, you know, I didn't even complete a lap of this in the silver class, and I had way overclassed myself. I 100% should have done bronze. I'm planning still to go do the Brushy Mountain Battle of the Goats amateur day, at least. Not going to go do the pro day on Sunday. I have no interest in that. I'm going to go out and keep practicing. It's hard, and it's brutal, and it's, you know, a whole different animal, but I'm still interested in it. I still want to keep trying to get better at it. So I'll see you guys at the next one. Peace.
In the worst fucking place.